Stop styling your fine hair the way you did 20 years ago, because that one habit is exactly why it looks flat before you even leave the house. If you catch yourself lifting your roots with your fingers just to watch them fall right back down, I need you to hear this clearly. Your hair isn't disappearing. You've just never been shown the 7 small shifts that change everything about how it looks and moves. I've watched women walk into a chair, convinced they were losing their hair, only to realize in minutes that the hair was always there. It was simply being fought instead of worked with. Today, you're getting all 7 of those shifts, the same ones stylists use quietly in the chair and rarely explain out loud, the kind of changes that take minutes, cost nothing, and start working the very next time you touch a brush. But stay close for secret number 4, because it's the one most women skip completely, the one that doesn't just change how your hair looks, it actually changes what your hair is capable of doing for you long after you put the brush down. And skipping it is why so many women do everything else right and still don't see the difference they were hoping for. If you're tired of watching your crown vanish by lunchtime and you're ready for real answers instead of another empty promise, subscribe now so you never miss the secrets built specifically for hair like yours. Let's start with the first one, because it's the fastest win you'll get all day. The first secret on our list that will finally give your fine hair the fullness it deserves is your lightweight routine. And I want to say something to you plainly before we go any further, because I think you need to hear it. Your hair is very likely not thinning the way you think it is. It's being quietly weighed down by the very products you trust every single day. You reach for that shampoo and conditioner because the bottle promises shine and softness, but you flip it over and read the first 3 ingredients. That's where the truth actually lives, because that's where the bulk of any formula sits. If you spot a heavy silicone like dimethicone, or mineral oil, or petrolatum sitting near the top, put it back on the shelf, because on fine hair, those ingredients don't wash away with a mild shampoo. They layer on with every single wash, building an invisible coat that gets heavier and heavier over time. This is the mistake I see more than almost anything else, and it's the one nobody warns you about before you buy, because it looks so harmless sitting there on the shelf promising fullness and shine. You need something lightweight instead, a formula that rinses completely clean or evaporates once it's done its job, because your roots cannot lift under weight they were never built to carry. Keep conditioner strictly on your mid-lengths and ends, never your roots, and once a week, run a clarifying shampoo through to strip away whatever's quietly building up since the last time. But your shampoo isn't the only thing sitting on your head all day working against you, because there's something touching your scalp every single morning that no bottle has ever fixed, and that's exactly where we're headed next. The second secret that will change how full your hair looks by tomorrow morning is your part, and specifically, the fact that you've likely worn it in the exact same spot for years without ever questioning it. Picture that straight, dead center line you know so well, run it long enough, and the hair on either side falls away from it, leaving a bright stripe of bare scalp sitting right down the middle. Your scalp catches the light, your hair sits darker beside it, and the sharper that line becomes between the two, the wider the gap looks to anyone facing you, even when your hair count hasn't changed at all. So you break the line. You take the tail of a comb, and instead of one clean stroke, you draw a soft zigzag back from your forehead, and that little stagger forces strands from both sides to cross over the gap and throw small shadows across it, so there's no continuous stripe left to catch the light. Now here's something I need to correct for you, because I hear it constantly, and it simply isn't true. You'll hear that a part trains your hair to grow a certain way. That's a myth. Your follicles set their angle long before any of this started, and no comb reprograms them. What's really happening is plain gravity. Your hair got used to falling one direction and settled into it, which means this fix is entirely within your control starting tonight. Shift the part again every few days, nudging it slightly left one morning and right the next. Never the same line twice in a row, and you'll watch your crown stand up on its own, with nothing but a comb and 10 seconds. No salon, no product, no waiting on anything to develop, just a different line on the same head of hair you already have. But your part isn't the only thing quietly working against you here, because there's a good chance the very shape of your cut has been fighting you for years too, and the fix for that one is even simpler than you'd expect, so stay with me for the next one. The third secret that gives your fine hair the fullness it's been missing is your blunt perimeter, and it goes against almost everything you've probably been told in a salon chair for years. Somewhere along the way, someone likely told you that thin hair needs layers, that taking out the bulk lets the rest of it breathe and lift. It sounds reasonable, but it's actually backwards. When your ends get razored or texturized, every strand tapers down to almost nothing, and you're left with see-through tips that no amount of product can fake into fullness again. Here's why the blunt line works instead. Fullness to the eye is really about how many fibers end at the exact same place. Cut them all level, and they stack into one solid edge, a visual wall that light bounces off evenly, and that reads as density even when the actual strand count underneath is low. Taper those same ends, and that wall dissolves into mist. So the move is a clean, blunt line you could almost run a ruler along, usually landing somewhere between your chin and your collarbone, long enough to still cover your scalp and frame your face, short enough to stop the weight from collapsing your roots. And I need you to say this out loud in the chair, because plenty of stylists reach for thinning shears on reflex, trying to be gentle with older hair. Tell them no point cutting, no razor, no texturizing, just a solid line. Ask for it by name so you don't walk out with the same soft, wispy ends you're trying to leave behind. This one builds a little slower than the last secret, but it's the foundation every other change on this list is standing on. Now, once that shape is sitting right, there's a single button on your blow dryer that decides whether all of this holds until bedtime or quietly collapses before lunch, and almost nobody presses it on purpose, so let's fix that next. The fourth secret that decides whether your volume lasts all day or collapses by lunch is a single button sitting right on your blow dryer, one you've probably never pressed on purpose in your life. Most women skip it completely, and that one miss is exactly why a good blowout can look perfect at 9 in the morning and fall flat by noon. Here's the technique. Take a section of hair up and away from your scalp with a round brush, warm it through fully at the root, and then, before you release it, hit it with the cool shot and hold it there for a slow count of 10 while it's still standing up on the brush. Only let go once the cold air has finished its work. Now let me explain why this actually matters. Every strand holds tiny bonds inside it that lock it into whatever shape it's sitting in. Heat breaks those bonds open so the hair can bend into a new position, and then as it cools, those same bonds reform and lock in whichever shape it was holding the instant it went cold. Cool it flat, it sets flat. Cool it lifted, it sets lifted and stays there. That cold blast is you physically freezing the lift in place. I learned this one the hard way, skipping the cold shot for years because the style already looked finished on the brush, only to watch it fall by early afternoon every single time. 30 seconds of cold air was the entire difference I'd been missing. But here's the warning that has to come with this. None of it works on soaking wet hair, and forcing it there does real damage, because fully saturated strands are stretched to their limit already, and dragging a brush through them isn't styling, it's tearing. Rough dry with your fingers first, never a brush, and only bring in the heat and the round brush once your hair is mostly dry to set that final shape. Now, everything we've covered so far has been about how your hair looks on the surface, but there's one secret left that works underneath all of it, on the actual cause, and it's the only one on this entire list that keeps working long after you've put the dryer down. The fifth secret on our list, and the one that finally works on the actual cause instead of just the look, is your 2-minute scalp massage, and this is the moment we've been building toward the whole video. Every fix so far has changed how your hair looks on the surface, but this is the one that goes underneath it, and I want you to really sit with that for a second, because we are so used to being told there's nothing left to do about hair that's changed with age, and that was never entirely true. Here's the move. Each morning or night, set the pads of your fingers, never your nails, flat against your scalp, and move the skin itself in slow circles. Don't skate over the hair. Actually shift the scalp underneath your fingers, working the crown and the temples, the two places fine hair thins first, for 2 to 3 unhurried minutes. This isn't a salon rumor. It's backed by a real study. Adults who massaged their scalp daily saw their individual strands measurably thicken over the following months, confirmed under a microscope, not just felt in the mirror. I've watched this be the moment it clicks for so many women, the point where we stop feeling like we're just managing a loss and start feeling like we're actually building something back, and that shift matters as much as the science does. But I need to be honest with you here too, because trust matters more to me than making this sound easier than it is. In that same study, shedding actually rose a little around the 12-week mark before any gain showed at all. That's not damage. Those are loose hairs already on their way out, clearing space for the thicker ones behind them. Quit the moment you spot a few extra in the sink, and you quit right before the payoff. Push through that stretch and the thickening lands on the other side of it, gentle enough to do in bed, and unlike almost everything else on this list, it keeps working long after you've stopped touching your hair at all. Now, everything you've just built with your own 2 hands can be quietly undone by one more habit, the exact shade of color sitting on your head right now, and that one might surprise you more than any secret so far. The 6th secret sitting on our list, and one that may genuinely surprise you, is your dimensional color, because the single flat shade you've been using to cover gray could be the very thing advertising your scalp to everyone in the room. Remember the contrast problem we talked about with your part. The same rule applies here, and it's actually worse. A solid, all one-tone dye turns every strand into the exact same dark backdrop, and against that flat, uniform darkness, every bright sliver of scalp at your crown lights up like a missing slat in a fence. Flat color doesn't hide thin-looking hair. It frames it and points a spotlight directly at it. So the fix is to break your color into many tones instead of one, soft caramel and blonde woven through by hand, or a balayage placed a touch lighter around your face, scatters the light into a dozen small reflections instead of one flat sheet, and that scattered light is exactly what blurs the scalp underneath it. Ask for it by name, dimensional color or hand-painted balayage, and say plainly that you want it lighter around the crown specifically. That's the placement doing the actual work. And if you've been coloring for decades, I want you to know that walking away from it completely is just as valid a choice, and worth considering seriously. Natural silver isn't the absence of color. Each strand is semi-translucent and catches light in a way solid dye simply can't, which your eye reads as its own kind of fullness and movement. The only real upkeep it asks for is a purple-toned shampoo once a week, sometimes less, to keep any yellow from creeping in. Go gently there, though, because overdoing it tips you straight into a faint lilac cast. Whichever road you choose, dimensional and dyed or natural and silver, the principle holds without exception. Many tones hide a scalp, and one flat tone reveals it every time. But there's something happening to all of this while you sleep tonight, something touching your hair for 8 hours straight that could be quietly undoing every single change you've made today, and you need to hear this one before you go to bed. The 7th and final secret, closing out our list tonight, is your silk pillowcase, and this is the one quietly undoing your volume for 8 hours a night while you have absolutely no idea it's happening. The fix is almost insultingly simple. Swap your cotton case for mulberry silk or a good satin, and the blowout you set the night before is largely still there when you wake, instead of crushed flat and roughed up by morning. Here's what cotton is actually doing to you while you sleep. All night your head turns and your hair drags across the pillow, and standard cotton is rougher than it feels and thirstier than it looks. Under a microscope, its fibers are coarse and snagging, so as your hair slides over them, they catch the cuticle scales and lift them, the very same scales you sealed flat that morning for shine. Cotton does something else too. It pulls moisture in, wicking water and natural oils out of your hair overnight, and leaving fine strands drier and more brittle by the time you wake, which is exactly why you open your eyes to flatness, frizz, and a tangle sitting right at the crown where you'd been pressing all night. Silk lets your hair glide instead of grip, and holds far less moisture against the strand, so what you built the night before actually survives until morning. Now, I do want to be honest with you here, because credibility matters more to me than a good sales line. The Pillowcase brands love to quote dramatic numbers about reduced breakage, and those figures come from the companies selling the pillowcases, not from independent research. What's genuinely proven is the friction and the moisture difference, and honestly, that's reason enough on its own. This is the easiest change on this entire list, because all you have to do is lie down. And this is where we land together, because everything we've walked through tonight was never really about 7 separate tricks. It was about you finally being handed what should have been common knowledge years ago, the kind of knowledge we deserve to have and so rarely get handed freely. We are the women who refuse to accept flat, tired, and forgotten as the price of getting older. We adjust, we learn, and we keep showing up looking exactly as radiant as we feel inside. And that is exactly what you're doing right now, just by staying to the end of this. You don't need more hair than you have. You need to work with the hair you've got, starting tonight, with a comb, a dryer, and a pillowcase you probably already own. If this gave you even one thing you didn't know before today, subscribe and stay close, because this community only grows stronger every time one more woman decides she's done disappearing. And I promise you, there is so much more we're going to uncover together.